So yeah, hello everyone, and today I'm going to be making my December and January wrap up, and because this video will be long, I just want to get through with it and yeah, just get right to it because I have filmed this video twice now. So yeah, let's start. The first book that I read was Defy Me by Tahara Mafi. I was really disappointed by this book. This is the fifth in the Shatter Me series, so I didn't really enjoy Shatter Me, but I did enjoy Restore Me, which is the book that follows started the new trilogy of the Shatter Me series, and I was really surprised. It wasn't a perfect book, but I really just enjoyed it, so I figured that I would continue on with the series and read Defy Me. Didn't enjoy it. I found it to be nothing happened. I wasn't interested in the characters at all, despite the fact that they were in very dire circumstances, and yeah, didn't really connect. Nothing. I'm gonna read the last book because again, I have invested most of my time already in these series, but not gonna, didn't like it. The next book that I read was Wuthering by Emily Bronte. This book I have a very hard time kind of explaining because I don't know, it's too complicated for me to explain. But I think it's sort of a family drama. I think that that's the way that I can explain it. And we follow three families and how they kind of grow up, merge, and just have drama together. And it goes on over a long period of time, so we see kind of tensions rise, and yeah, it's a very tragic book and it's not a pleasant read. I didn't have a good time reading this at all, but I was very sort of compelled by the story and the characters. Despite the fact that I didn't like them, I kind of enjoyed the story. It's very weird because I did not have a good time reading this book and yet I liked it. So I think that that's the best way that I can describe this book. And yeah, this was my classic of December. I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I don't think that this is my favorite Bronte book, but I do enjoyed it and I do get why people love and rave about this book. The next book that I read was The Moment of Lift by Melinda Gates. She is a philanthropist with her husband Bill Gates, and this book just kind of brings to light the sort of issues that women have around the world. I did a review about this, so if you want my more in-depth kind of thoughts, I will just redirect you there. But in sort of summary, I really enjoyed this book and I really loved it. It didn't feel very self-centered. It felt like Melinda Gates was really trying to bring attention to the things that are happening around the world, to women, and how we can help. So yeah, great book, great read, and I really enjoyed it. Then I really wanted to start the next year just getting this book over with because it's been on my currently reading list for about a year and a half, and I am proud to say that I did it, and that book was A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. This book is the second in the Game of Thrones series, and the reason why I just stopped reading it was because I already know what's gonna happen, so what was the point of continuing on? I had other books that kind of piqued my interest more, so yeah, finished it. It was great. It was surprisingly funny, and I laughed a lot. I used the audiobook to kind of just push through the rest of the book. This is a very chunky book and it has about 1,000 pages. So yeah, I finished it and I'm really proud to say that. And I feel like I started the year really good just getting this over with. But it was great. It was an amazing experience and it was very funny. Then I read Whose Story Is This by Rebecca Solnit. This is a collection of essays that just centers around not only women's issues, but kind of the narrative and how controlling narratives kind of I know this is very obvious, but how distorting and controlling a narrative really affects women, or how is an issue that really just makes women's life even harder. So we get to talk about, for example, sexual assault and how basically women are not believed, or how their stories are kind of changed or distorted. So yeah, wonderful book. I think that what I really enjoyed about this book is that it brought to light things that I really didn't notice before, and I think that when a book does that, it did its job. I feel like feminist reads can be a little basic sometimes, but this was not it. It was perfect. It was just wonderful. So yeah, great read. Then I read The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock. This book I didn't enjoy. This book just follows the story of Mr. Hancock. He is a sort of a merchant. He owns many ships, and one day one of his captains comes back from his trip and tells Mr. Hancock that he sold his ship in exchange for a dead mermaid. So it's just basically how Mr. Hancock now has this mermaid in possession of him, and how just the story continues and what he does with this mermaid. And we also follow the story of Angelica Neal and just how both of their stories kind of unite eventually. I thought that this was gonna be a romance, and it wasn't, not in the way that I expected. But yeah, despite the fact that I didn't enjoy this book at all, I just want to say that the writing in this book was just precious and beautiful. I think that this is the most beautifully written book I have ever read, and that's saying something. It's beautiful. It's beautifully written. So I am going to still be on the lookout for more books written by this author, because I cannot wait to just read something as beautiful as this was written. So it's really weird because I didn't enjoy the plot, I didn't enjoy the characters, but the writing, great. Then I read A Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, and I really... Here's the thing, I really did enjoy An Enchantment of Ravens, and I have seen, as I have read many reviews about this book, I have seen that the people that really enjoyed An Enchantment of Ravens didn't enjoy this book, and the people who didn't enjoy An Enchantment of Ravens loved this book. So I'm confused. Or I see a pattern. This book was one of Whitney from Witty Novels' favorite reads of the year, and I was excited. I loved the idea of this book. I was like, this sounds amazing. So yeah. So for those of you who may not know, this book just follows... What was her name? This book follows Elizabeth. She is an apprentice at this sort of library, and she is destined to become one of the... I don't know. Sort of a librarian. You can see that I read this book recently, and yet I remember none of it. But something sort of happens in the library, and Elizabeth is accused of sort of, I don't know, having something to do with a crime. I'm trying not to spoil it. But yeah, that's basically it. I was really intrigued. I really like the idea. I think that the idea behind the books and them being alive and being able to express themselves is a great one, and I found myself being the most interested in this book when I read those parts. But this is very also romance heavy, and yet there is no romance, which made the story kind of, I don't know. I think that my issue with fantasy books that are standalones is that, I don't know, here's the thing. I prefer fantasy standalones to be romance focused, because you can just do the entire plot, the arc of the plot, and it feels like everything was covered. But when you do a fantasy book that is just centered around politics and just magical kind of drama, there is a lot to explore, and there is a lot to be just not finished. So that's what I feel. I feel like if this series had been a trilogy, I would have been fine. but it wasn't. So because I loved An Enchantment of Ravens was more, it was very romance focused, and you got to see a lot of interactions with the characters, and when the end occurs, you feel good because you feel like it was earned. This wasn't. I felt like it was very angsty and in a good way, and there was not enough interactions between the characters to merit the sort of feelings that they had for each other. So yeah, this would have been great if it had been a trilogy. And yeah, I'm going to be on Holly in this probably. So yeah, those are the books that I read in December and January. Yeah, I wanted to quickly mention some of the books that I'm going to be reading for February. I am going to be participating in the Blacklit Challenge, which is hosted by Seiji at The Artisan Geek. I put this sort of art that she made about this readathon so that you can see some of the prompts. It's a very simple one, which is why I gravitated towards it, because as you saw, I don't read as much monthly. I can read about 4 or 5 books, that's it. So yeah, let me get my list so that I can tell you which are the books that I'm going to be reading. I'm not going to be talking about what these books are about because I honestly don't know. I just picked them and I'll just read them and tell you how they are. So for a book with a black person on the cover, I'm going to choose Binti. For a book written before the 21st century, I'm going to be reading Parable of the Sower. For a book that has a genre outside of your comfort zone, I'm going to be reading Kindred by Octavia Butler. This is a graphic novel. I barely read graphic novels, so I counted that as outside my comfort zone. And then an author from the outside of the US or the UK, I am going to be reading La Llamarada by Enrique Laguerre, which is a Puerto Rican author. So really excited, guys, really excited. And I'm going to be buddy reading with Seiji herself with The Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. And I wanted to read other books. I think that on my just to be read list is The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I think that The Hate U Give. Those are other 2 books that I think I'm gonna just order and see, but that depends on how I am making progress with these books, so we'll see. That's all. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys with the next video. Bye. Hello everyone. You may be wondering, why did Adriana did not mention her classic of the month for the month of January? I will explain. I was reading Little Women, and that book is long, but I'm almost finishing it. It's February 1, so I'm going to count it as the classic for January, but I will discuss it on February because I still have a little bit more to read. My eyebrows are horrendous. Jesus Christ. I wanted to let you know because I already packed up the entire tripod filming equipment, so I'm going to just let you know here. And yeah, thank you guys for watching.